And now, what everyone's been waiting for, the HBK-IIC-B with clan LRMs. This build is, everyone should know I hate LRMs. Like, it's something I talk about enough that it's common knowledge, I feel. But I can't really afford to not play anything, you know what I mean? Like, if I don't have any experience playing a certain build, I have to get that experience. And since I'm making a video, might as well broadcast it, right? So yeah, here's me with 4 LRM-10s in Artemis and 2 ERMEDs in the CT. The reason I'm using these LRM-10s is that, well, first of all, they've got way less spread than the other stuff. They've got, I don't know the exact numbers, but basically the gist of it is that damage will be more concentrated. That's not to say that it's going to be perfectly pinpoint or anything. It'll be spread across multiple components, even on the largest mechs, and some will still hit the ground when you're shooting at mediums and lights if they're moving, probably. But it's still way better than the alternatives like the 15 or particularly the 20. They did tighten up the spread on those in the last patch, but they also increased the cooldown a bit, which is another thing the LRM 10 has going for it. Again, obviously not as good as the 5s, but it's fast enough that you're getting a pretty decent chunk of extra DPS over the 5s, which is important. And then lastly is the heat. As you can see, not generating a whole lot of it. I could probably afford to be alpha striking. Alpha striking, I think with 4 of them, you're generating an extra 5 point something heat over if you fired in groups of 2 and 2, but I'd say in these situations, I know I'm doing the 2x2 in the video, but I'd say honestly alpha striking I could get away with it a bit more. One thing I don't like about this build actually is that it's got a bit of it's a LRM boat. It's not just a LRM mech, it's a LRM boat. I would much rather have seen this be on like if the 2cc had been, instead of 2 ballistic 4 energy, 2 missile 4 energy, that could have run something like 2 LRM-10s Artemis and 4 Meads. Could have felt pretty good about Pop-Tart or doing like some more aggressive poking with it. But we're left with this instead, which it's not the end of the world. Something you might have noticed in this is that a lot of people know this already, but if you're LRMing and you basically throw up your crosshair before you fire, there's like cover in front of you or the enemy, it makes your missiles leave at a higher angle, leave their tubes, which can help them get over any obstacles in the way. Sometimes it backfires and you lose lock doing it, so it's one of those things that you need practice to get perfect. And I found that the Hunchback is not the best at this. I don't know exactly why. It just doesn't feel that way. I think it has to do with the torso pitch speed kind of stuff from the mobility nerfs maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, at this point, enough of them have either died or migrated back towards their spawn point that, well, I can just sit here and fire because we got that UAV. The UAVs are really useful. Only reason I don't recommend taking them in LRM boats is that if your LRM boat is close enough to get a UAV off that will actually see enemy mechs, then it's also close enough to get pushed on, which is, I don't know, it's a little risky for me. But now I'm getting a little aggressive. Friggin' did not know that Direwolf was there, but luckily his build is shit. Maybe that's a stock. No, I don't think that's a stock. It might be a stock build. But yeah, easy damage. Shooting a Direwolf with LRMs, that's your ideal, you know? That's what you want to be doing. And now we are kind of running low on ammo. I've updated the build in the master guide to include an extra ton. I don't think it needs that much more though. I spent a lot of time in this game shooting at targets that I shouldn't have been shooting at just because I knew that my LRMs weren't going to hit. So just, you know, don't be stupid like that and you'll be fine. Now that I am out of ammo, I'm going to be very aggressive with the ERMEDs. I should have been using them more in the past, but the problem with this build, with being LRM-centric, is that you don't get that much more out of acting aggressively, and you do risk a lot, because the HBK-IIC is just really squishy in general, and you don't want to lose a side torso. That's half your firepower, and quite a bit of your heat too. Heat dissipation. But now that I'm down to 2 Eremides, doesn't really matter at this point, but normally you just want to play really, really aggressively, like brawling with them, just because it's better that you get damaged than a teammate that still has weapons left. There's not much to say about LRMs that I haven't already said. They're kind of meh. I think some people play them a bit too statically. You don't want to wait for the enemy to get into a place where you can shoot them. You want to play it like any other mech and just try to make sure that there's no obstructions between you and the enemy that you can't fire over, and just keep playing around that. And also, if you can see the enemies, just directly fire them with your lasers. I would say always do it. If it means that you're running out of heat and you can't fire your LRMs for a volley, that's fine. It's better that you get that concentrated damage. It's not the thing where you should really go out of your way to do it as much as possible, unless you're like fresh or whatever. And if you are fresh, then maybe you do go out of your way to do it a couple times, just to maybe soak up some hits for your teammates, if they're poking too. But they're just such more useful weapons, and that's why I don't like LRMs, because everything else is just more useful. Maybe someday they'll be useful enough on their own to be good backup weapons, but this is not that day. At least the mech is fast enough that you can always reposition for your LRMs. You're never really out of options in this mech. But yeah, that's me playing a LRM mech.